Street.
Best way to be, because I'll move on, Sonny. Move on.
We noticed, Shay. How many sugars do you want in your tea? Oh, you've been making it for 15 years. I mean, I still keep asking the same question, dude.
Do you know what? I would like you tomorrow to make me breakfast. And
I would like to meet Tyra Banks, but it ain't going to happen, is it?
And then when we're back on air tomorrow, I'll talk about how diabolical your breakfast was.
Really?
How's that?
There you go. So with that kind of
18 years and you still don't know how to make a decent cup of tea. Just saying.
It's 18 years.
On purpose you don't make it, I think. I think this is a purposeful thing.
Are you just, generalising and judging me on this? Are you being judgmental?
I may well be.
Are you being judgmental on our relationship?
And it's quite apt that we're talking about this because we're joined by Midlands-based author Rohail Aslam, whose latest book is looking at confrontation and conflict.
Oh no!
Well, this is great.
Is he married?
And he was told to talk to a husband and wife for the BBC. This is just going to be brilliant.
I think he might put the phone down.
Well, now, the book actually asks whether this is everyone's problem that nobody really knows about, and it's called Am I Judgmental? And to talk to us and tell us more about it, we are joined by Rohail Aslam, the author of the book. Rohail, pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, guys. It's lovely to be here.
You say that now?
Yes. now look.
On the subject of whether I'm married, I mean, it's only after 22 years of marriage that you're going to end up writing a book like this.
Well, now see how that's it. And of course, we've been all through a very tough 22 months, right? Coming out of it, I think a lot of people, relationships are stronger, but sadly some are not. As couples have kind of realised that actually there is a lot of confrontation and conflict in their relationships for a number of reasons. So let's delve into the book, shall we? How did you come up with the idea for your second book?
Okay, I mean it's kind of a good decade and a half really of working with families and children with emotional behavioural difficulties. That's what I do. I'm a school teacher essentially, and I work with kids that have been permanently excluded from school. And these are from kind of the lowest socioeconomic sort of parts of the country.
Right.
And so that question had always begged itself, in my head about why is it that there's so much conflict in not only in deprived communities, but right the way across the board. In fact, that this tendency for people to kick off at each other, it knows no bounds. You'll have members of a royal family and presidents of a country, right the way down to a regular, ordinary man and wife at a kitchen table. Even children, as children we're brought up in judgmental behaving environments, that it comes so natural to us. Hence the little strapline under the title, which is everyone's problem, that nobody actually is fully aware is the serious problem that could be solved.
Right.
That's a thing. You also got the title a little wrong. The full title.
Am I judgmental if I say you're judgmental? It's an interesting one.
That's the question in the book, which is, how can I, if I think that you've been wrong, or if I think you've done or said something wrong, how can I convey that to you without upsetting you? Is there a way that I can convey to you without causing a kick-off?
Is that possible, though? The question that you raise is one that a lot of people have had to really delve into, especially during the pandemic when we're all self-isolating and we're all locked indoors with, partners, loved ones, parents, siblings. Am I judgmental if I say you're judgmental? The book itself delves into this on many different levels, doesn't it? Because the important thing we must talk about, of course, is with regards to confrontation, it can come in so many different forms. The most disturbing side of it, of course, which we know sadly there's been a real rise of domestic violence, domestic abuse during the pandemic. But then, of course, we've seen what has happened outside within communities where there's been a lot of panic around what has happened due to the pandemic. A lot of businesses, a lot of individuals have lost their work, and so there's so many different levels to delve into, isn't there?
And there are so many, exactly. And I mean, this is literally how the book came about. So as soon as the lockdown hit, remember this was a question that had been bugging me for years and years. And it
we saying, therefore, that you should just constantly avoid confrontation? Or actually, are we saying that it's about knowing what you're going to say before you enter the conflict in the first place?
I think it's kind of a bit of both, really, which is A, not wanting the confrontation in the first place, because we know that the pieces that you have to pick up afterwards, we know that, kind of the toxicity of losing your temper and two people losing their temper to each other. And this is what causes domestic abuse, this is what causes violence, this is what leads to, aggression, and this is what leads to, every single kind of prejudice, discrimination, and subjugation of people. So what we're doing is, as human beings, this is one of the key things that separates us from the animal kingdom, which is that we've got the power of creativity. So we've got the capacity to step back and to hold that response, that knee-jerk response. And instead, very easily, once you get into the habit of it, it's actually very practical to sort of hold your response. And it's a lot to do with sort of emotional self-regulation as well. The more you practice this, the easier, the better, more skilled you become then at holding a knee-jerk response, thinking for a second or two, and then coming out with a response that's actually aimed at connecting with that person rather than pushing them away.
And that is what this book is all about. It's called Am I Judgmental If I Say You're Judgmental?
Yeah.
And it's available as well at Waterstones. You can go to waterstones.com. It's available in all good bookstores and also on Amazon as well. Rohail Aslam, a real pleasure having you on the show. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who will find this book very timely of trying to avoid some of these pitfalls when it comes to being judgmental. Thanks again for joining us tonight. A pleasure having you on the show.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for your time.
Thanks again. The book, Am I Judgmental If I Say You're Judgmental, is out and available now. And you can go to Waterstones and other book stores as well for details. Right now, though, let's get the 11 o'clock news headlines.
The BBC Sounds app on your smart speaker.